and welcome to Non-Toxic Nerd, home of movies, TV, comics, and games. Today we're looking at episode 5 of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Truth. As always, this breakdown will be spoiler heavy, so if you haven't already seen the latest episode, go watch it and then come back. If you already have seen it or you just don't care, then let's get started. This episode opens in the direct aftermath of John Walker's actions from the last episode. As he's running away from the scene, we cut back and forth from scenes of him beating down the Flag Smasher. He eventually comes to rest in a warehouse where he starts thinking about Lamar and some of the things he said to him in recent episodes. Sam and Bucky confront him here and they try to convince him to come with them peacefully, but Walker perceives this as a ploy to get the shield from him. A great fight scene ensues and Walker proves himself to be a match for the pair as he is now enhanced. After some tussling back and forth with the shield, Walker throws Bucky into some sort of electrical source which incapacitates Bucky. I think it's important to note at this point Walker yells out, "Why are you making me do this?" Before the fight started, he defended his actions, saying he had to kill the Flag Smasher and he won't accept that it wasn't the one who killed Lamar. As we all know, Carly's the actual one who killed Lamar. So we're seeing him have this great power, but he is not willing to accept any responsibility for his actions. While struggling with Sam, Walker says he is Captain America and he rips Sam's wing off the jetpack. Just as he's about to beat Sam down with the shield, Bucky tackles him off. The fight basically ends with Sam and Buck teaming up to snap Walker's arm and get the shield from him. The fight takes its toll on all three, and Bucky ends up leaving Sam with the shield and an incapacitated John Walker. Sam tries wiping the blood off the shield, and then we cut to the title card. We cut back to GRC agents arresting the displaced people from the camp in last episode. Sam and Bucky are there, and as Lieutenant Torres arrives, Bucky leaves to go find Zemo. If you all remember, Lieutenant Torres was the guy helping out Sam in the first episode, so I don't think we've seen him since the first episode, so it's nice to have him back. Torres informs Sam that someone higher up on the payroll has taken over fighting Carly, so it sounds like the military or the government is taking a larger role in trying to contain the Flag Smashers, and Sam and Bucky have been effectively benched for this particular mission. Torres questions Sam about the damaged wings, but Sam never really answers and just keeps changing the subject. Sam asks if there's anything that they can do, but Torres says it would be best to just wait for something to come up. Sam ends up leaving with the shield, and as Torres calls out that he forgot the wings, Sam tells Torres to keep them. So, when Torres was first introduced in the first episode, I mentioned in my breakdown that he could be a reference to Joaquin Torres, who takes up the mantle of the Falcon. He now has the wingsuit, albeit severely damaged, so we might be heading that way. We then head to Washington, D.C., where Walker is being held accountable for his actions in a hearing. He's no longer Captain America and is ordered to no longer act as a representative of the U.S. Armed Forces. Walker becomes pretty combative as he thinks that Lamar being killed counts as an extenuating circumstance, and that kind of excuses what he did. The council he is before states that he will receive an other than honorable discharge, which basically takes away all his retirement benefits, pension, and the ability to work in a government or military position. Walker states again that he is Captain America, to which the committee chairman says that he is not anymore. That's twice now that he is declared to be Captain America. I don't think Steve Rogers ever once did. So it's kind of looking like the power is going to his head. Maybe the serum is changing him a little. It's bringing out more of his insecurities. He has to keep saying he's Captain America because he knows he can't live up to the ideal that Steve Rogers set before him. Walker walks out of the committee, and the chair threatens him with time in a correctional barracks if he disobeys the mandate of a separation from the military. And he needs to return the shield. And after this, we see him sitting on a bench next to his wife. She's encouraging him on the next steps as we hear steps approaching with a surprise character. I didn't see anything about this leading up to this episode, so it was a really big surprise. Contessa Valentina Allegra de la Fontaine, as portrayed by Julia Louis-Dreyfus. So this is actually a big character. We'll get into her story in a little bit. But she introduces herself and squeezes in between Walker and his wife. She's very smug and self-assured and goes on about how he did the right thing, killing the Flag Smasher, and hands Walker's wife a card when she asks who she is, as in who does the Contessa work for, because she just told them who she is. Very clearly, I might add. The Contessa then tells Walker he was right to take the serum and that makes him valuable. and it was one of the best choices he's made aside from marrying his wife, and more importantly, picking up his phone when the Contessa calls him. She then tells him not to worry about the shield because she knows he doesn't have it, and how it doesn't really belong to the government as it's a legal gray area. This could be referring to the fact that the shield was built by Howard Stark as a consultant during World War II with probably unethically sourced vibranium from Wakanda, and then given to Steve Rogers, who then more than 100 years later gave it to Sam Wilson, who then donated it to the Smithsonian, which was then removed from display and given to John Walker for the purpose of representing Captain America. So maybe we'll get that cleared up on who can actually claim ownership of the shield in the next episode, or at least hopefully soon. Walker and his wife look at the card as the Contessa leaves, and they see that it is blank. So this Contessa character, she's actually from the comics. She first appeared in Strange Tales number 159, where she starts out as an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., and she's gone under several different aliases, including Agent 14 and Madam Hydra. Of course, Sharon Carter was also known as Agent 13, and they actually worked together a bit in the comics, so maybe that'll come into play. She has been in a romantic relationship with Nick Fury, and also led an all-female spy team known as the Femme Force, which included Sharon Carter. She aided in a fight against a S.H.I.E.L.D. takeover by artificially created humans called the Deltites, and was reassigned to the UK as a S.H.I.E.L.D. liaison after this. Here she helped Union Jack, Sabra, and the Arabian Night thwart an attack by the terrorist group Raid. At some point, she secretly joins Hydra, where she assumes the identity of Madam Hydra. She is later discovered to have been a Russian sleeper agent throughout her career with both S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra. She isn't a super soldier, but she is an extremely skilled and dangerous spy. So this is kind of an interesting character to bring in this late in the game. I'm kind of really interested to see how they use her in the next episode and going forward in the MCU. We cut back to the GRC camp where the Flag Smashers and Karli have returned to find it shut down and the people arrested or dispersed. This angers Karli, who declares that the movement is ready. So it looks like they're gonna pull something big. I don't think there's any going back for her, which we then hear from Zemo. In the next scene, he's standing by the Sokovia Monument where Bucky is caught up to him. Zemo says that he has decided not to kill Bucky, as Bucky holds a handgun at his side and isn't really impressed. Zemo continues that Karli has been radicalized beyond return, and that Sam wouldn't listen to him and that Bucky needs to kill her. Bucky says they'll do it their own way, as he cocks the gun and raises it to Zemo's head. But when he pulls the trigger, it just clicks. He then drops bullets out of his other hand, just like in one of the trailers, as the Dora Milaje approach and apprehend Zemo. Ayo tells Bucky that they will take him to the Raft, the enhanced person's prison, and that Bucky should stay clear of Wakanda for a while. But before they leave, Bucky says he has one more favor to ask of Wakanda. This was kind of a weird scene. I understand they needed to apprehend Zemo, and the favor that Bucky asked comes into play later. It's just really weird how he did it. Why the fake out with the gun to the head and the click and the dropping of the bullets? I didn't really get it. Maybe those bullets represented the super soldiers that Zemo had killed. So just kind of a weird scene. I'm not sure exactly how to feel about it, but it moves the story along. We then cut to Sam paying Isaiah Bradley a visit with the S.H.I.E.L.D. back in Baltimore. They talk about what happened to Isaiah. He tells his story, which after a bit kind of mirrors Steve's first mission in the first Avenger. So Isaiah and other black men were given the serum and sent to fight. While in country, several started dying due to reactions to the serum until just Isaiah and a handful of others were left. Some of his men get captured, and Isaiah overhears the commanders discussing wiping out the POW camp to hide any evidence of super soldiers. So here's where it starts to mirror with Captain America's story, or Steve Rogers' story. Isaiah takes it upon himself to break the POWs out. So he goes on a mission by himself, breaks his brothers out. And instead of getting rewarded with a montage of missions throughout the war that we got in the first Avenger, Bradley's thrown in the brig for 30 years, while the men he rescued died anyways from reactions to the serum. This is where they experimented on him for 30 years, and he says a nurse eventually took pity on him and had him declared dead, and gave him a bunch of letters that his wife had sent him that he was not allowed to see while he was in prison. Sam wants to spread the word about him, but Isaiah asserts that he would be killed as soon as he was revealed, that the government would never let a black man be Captain America, and that no self-respecting black man would want to be. So we haven't seen as much of this as I thought in the series, but I felt like this really exemplifies how a lot of people of color feel about the anthem and the American flag. I can't personally attest to those feelings because my ancestors weren't brought to this country as slaves and then beaten down through various forms over the next 400 to 500 years. So I'm not going to dwell on it too much so I don't say anything out of turn, but I thought that this was a good analogy for how people feel about the anthem. Like I said in my first breakdown, if you really want more info on this subject, go seek out knowledge from people who are affected by this issue or people who are way smarter than me at communicating their feelings and thoughts on it. I'm here to talk about comics and movies and TV shows. This experience gives Sam a lot to think about, and he calls his sister to tell her he's coming home. We then see him talking to his nephews as they detangle a net, and Sam finds out that the family boat can't be sold because it would cost too much to fix. As Sarah is sending the boys out for school, she gives them extra lunches and tells them to make sure some other kids get them, as they usually don't get lunches during the day. Sam mentions that she's trying to feed everybody just like their mother, which prompts him to think about how many outstanding favors their parents had. Sam then starts calling around for help and parts for the boat, and next we see a bunch of people at the dock to help with the boat. Bucky ends up showing up, and he drops off a cool-looking case, which came from his favor he asked of the Wakandans. At that point, a pipe fitting gets loose, and Bucky uses his super soldier strength to help fix it. He offers to stay and help with the boat, and we see a brief flirtation between Buck and Sarah before a boat-fixing montage set to Hey Pocky Away by the Meters starts to play. This episode has two montages. This is the first of the montages in this episode. So we're actually we had some action at the beginning. There's no other action, I don't think, throughout the rest of this episode. We're starting to get into more development for the rest of this episode. So at the end of the day, Sam offers Bucky a place to stay as long as he doesn't flirt with his sister anymore. We then cut to Walker visiting Lamar's family and assuring them that he got the man who killed Lamar. He was sorry about what happened. But he keeps asserting he got Lamar's killer, even though we know that he didn't. So I wonder how this is going to come into play later, or next episode. We only got one more episode left after this. As he leaves, he walks down the sidewalk and passes a poster of himself as Captain America. And I think this is the last time we see Walker until later. It's going to be a while. So we then cut to Sharon Carter making a call offering a job to someone who would, quote, still be rotting away in an Algerian prison, unquote, if it weren't for her. We then hear a man yell in French over the phone. This strongly implies to me that she's talking to Batroc, who we haven't seen since the first episode, Batroc the Leaper. In the first episode, at the very beginning, he narrowly escapes an exploding helicopter, so this confirms that he did survive that. Back at Sam's house, Bucky is awoken by the sound of Sam's nephews playing with the shield. He then heads out to the boat to help Sam with some repairs. Later on that morning, Sarah runs them off as there appears to be a misunderstanding on what needs to be fixed, so the boys go back to the house to play with the shield. They have a nice little training area set up, some trees with some pads to bounce the shield off of. Sam explains the complicated history of the shield, and Buck apologizes to him for him and Steve putting Sam in a kind of an awkward position, and how the shield was all he had left of Steve. So when Sam retired it, Bucky started questioning everything about Sam and Steve and himself. And Sam tells him that Steve is gone and he needs to stop looking to other people to know who he is, basically telling Bucky that he needs to go out and kind of find out who he is. They talk about Bucky's nightmares, and Sam says that he needs to make amends with people he hurt, not avenging himself against the people he helped as Winter Soldier. We saw at the beginning kind of a flashback scene where Bucky is able to take down a senator that he was able to put in place help put in place as Winter Soldier. So Sam seems like he's been doing a lot, and then Zemo, of course, probably got crossed off the list. He's been able to avenge certain aspects of his past. Sam is telling him he needs to just start with one name and make amends with actual people that he hurt and give them closure, not give himself closure. Bucky seems to kind of warm up to this idea, and as he leaves, he tells Sam to call him when he has a lead on Carly. They appear to be in a lot better place with each other than when the series started. Not quite friends, but partners that are working to continue Steve's legacy of truth and justice and holding people accountable. We then go back to the boat, where the only thing left to do is paint over their parents' names on the boat and sell it. Sarah starts having second thoughts, and she doesn't want to sell the boat. Sam is pretty relieved and agrees, and as he always has, and say they need to fight to preserve their family legacy. That seems to be a recurring theme in this series, is legacy. Steve's legacy, Sam's parents' legacy, the Shield's legacy. Sarah commends Sam on being able to fight the good fight at home and at the larger world, and Sam resolves that to give the Shield another shot. We then get the second montage of the episode. It's a training montage of Sam working out and practicing throwing the Shield. Starts out a little shaky, can't quite get the hang of it, but by the end of the montage, of course, his skills have improved dramatically. We then cut to Carly and the Flag Smashers in a park meeting Batroc the Leaper. He delivers a case of ordnance to Carly, and one of the Flag Smashers has a problem with this, saying, "Oh, we're criminals now," and Carly tells him that everyone says they are, so they might as well be. She sends out a mass message to the Flag Smashers and says they're going to stop a GRC vote on forcibly returning the refugees to their countries of origin. Batroc says he's not there to join their cause, he just wants to kill the Falcon, and Carly assures him that he'll get his chance. She then whistles, which signals all the people in the park to approach her, and says they're going to battle as the camera pans up to reveal the Chrysler Building, which of course is an iconic building in the New York City skyline. So they are in New York City. We then cut back to Sam, where Torres is reporting to Sam about picking up a Flag Smashers ping in New York, and Sam is able to put two and two together as he's watching a news report on the GRC vote on the legislation we just mentioned known as the Patch Act. Sam thanks Torres using his first name, Joaquin, so it looks like we are going to see some mantle shifting as we talked about earlier. Of course, the Joaquin Torres from the comics becomes the Falcon after Sam Wilson. So it looks like we're going to see a little bit of that, hopefully by next episode. So back in New York, the GRC Council is arguing over the Patch Act. Some people are for it, some people aren't. But it doesn't matter, they don't get to a vote. The Flag Smashers infiltrate and lock down the building. We then cut back to Sam, who opens up the case that Bucky brought him, and the episode ends before we get to see what's inside. I'm really hoping for some new vibranium-powered Captain America suit, but we're going to have to wait till next week to find out. But wait, if you thought that was the end of the episode, you need to go back and watch till after the credits. We do have a post-credit scene for the first time this series. It's a pretty big spoiler, so go watch it again if you haven't seen it. I don't want to ruin it for you here. Okay, so if you've already seen it, then that's great. If you haven't seen it, after the credits, we get to see John Walker working on his own shield. He's hammering and welding and painting, so it looks like we might get to see U.S. Agent in action after all. Hopefully in next episode, and hopefully in the MCU going forward. He's a great foil to Captain America. He's kind of like the same but different, you know? He's a little more harsher, like we've seen John Walker become in this series. He does believe in patriotism. He does believe in the American way. He just thinks you can be a little more aggressive in your patriotism. So the penultimate episode of this series gave us a lot of development. Sam and Bucky have resolved their issues surrounding the Shield and Steve's legacy. John Walker is officially no longer Captain America and has moved towards a darker side of his personality. Sam and Sarah's boat is going to stay in the family, and Carly has decided to go full terrorist mode, and there doesn't seem like to be any conflict in her mind anymore. We also have some questions for the last episode. Like I mentioned before, the Contessa and Sharon have worked together in the comics. Will they work together in this series, in the last episode, or have they been working together all along? What is Sharon Carter up to? Remember, we still don't know who the power broker is. I've seen some rumors online that maybe it's Sharon. So is Sharon the power broker? Is she working for the power broker? Is the Contessa the power broker? We have to wait to find out. How bad is John Walker going to break? And will Torres show up as the new Falcon? And will Sam take on the Captain America mantle? So this episode set up quite the showdown for the final episode, and I'm more excited than ever to tune in next week. Well, folks, that's it for today's breakdown. Please like, share, and subscribe. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course on YouTube, all as Non-Toxic Nerd. Special thanks to Brad for our music. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.